Hello, I'm Cleo Franklin. I'm the founder and CEO of Morningside College's Franklin Leadership Foundation and global consulting business, Franklin Strategic Solutions. I'm also the proud author of a new book just released called Coffee with Cleo. But folks, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here today to introduce an exciting new partnership with Morningside College. It's called the Franklin Leadership Professional Development Series. This series is really developed with you in mind. As we deal with the challenges of COVID-19 that has brought about a lot of uncertainty, fear, and doubt, we feel that with chaos comes opportunity. And this initiative is that opportunity to share with you by introducing and bringing to you virtually the best minds across the globe to talk to you about issues, challenges, topics that you're concerned with. What do I do when it comes to pursuing a career? How do I professionally network? What are the tips and tricks to be successful in my life? I hope that you'll find this series and this platform of engagement with business professionals will be enlightening for you to help you not only rise, but soar to the next level. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Morningside, as well as those involved with the Franklin Leadership Foundation, we welcome this opportunity to engage with you. All the best. I've known Tony for quite a while and met Tony when I was a division sales manager in the Kansas City branch, and Tony was in dealer development. But what I can say about Tony is this: Tony's someone that's going to shoot you straight. He's going to give you things that I think you're going to find value and things that you basically can use, especially when it comes to this particular subject matter that we're going to speak about. No matter who you are and where you are in your career, transitioning into a new position is tough. But everyone needs a roadmap. And not only do you need a roadmap, you need a toolkit to be able to help you make that transition. Because how you start sometimes really is going to be predicated on how successful you're going to be, whether that's a mentor, whether that's a plan. But Tony is going to go through all those elements today in this presentation, and I can't think of anyone better to basically help walk you through a roadmap from transitioning to be successful in your new position than Tony Thelen. And Tony, thank you so much for being part of the Franklin Professional Development Series, and we look forward to your presentation.
Hey, thank you, Cleo. Can everybody hear me okay? Just to sound check.
Yep, we can hear you great, Tony.
Great. First of all, just a real privilege. Thanks for the kind words, Cleo. It's a privilege to be here today to give back to Morningside College and to participate in the Franklin Leadership Foundation efforts to develop tomorrow's leaders. I do take it seriously to help develop people, and my goal today in the next hour is that anyone watching this and listening today takes a look inside their own career, opportunities before them, challenges they may be facing, opportunities they may be thinking about, and they find some kind of nugget or some kind of insight that can make a difference for them tomorrow or next week or anytime in the future, something that they'll always remember. I know a lot of people have poured their advice and support into me, and it's very, very important to me to give back and to share what I've learned over time. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully everyone will be able to find a nugget or two that really does make a difference in your life. Just a little bit about me in my background. I graduated out of Iowa State University with a chemical engineering degree. And then about 10 years after that, I achieved an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Northern Iowa. And then about 10 years after that, I spent a year and a half studying strategy and innovation at Oxford University in the UK. You start out with my employment going back 32 years. Those early years in the early 90s is where I first came across Cleo, and I always remember him from that time in the Kansas City sales branch. It was formative in my career, and I remembered people that worked hard to make a difference in their communities, worked hard to make a difference in the business, and worked hard to make a difference for their fellow employees. My time in John Deere has spanned a lot of different responsibilities, and I think that we'll get into that here in a little bit. I've got a wife and 3 daughters, as seen in this picture here, a recent picture. A 14-year-old going into high school level now, a 16-year-old going into her senior year in high school, and then a 21-year-old who is going into her senior year of college here this year. I try to read a book every month. This month's reading is Measure What Matters by John Doerr. The story about how objectives and key results produced outstanding outcomes and business results in the early days of IBM, and how it influenced the early days of Google, as well as many other businesses. But reading is a big deal to me, and I know that if you're going to be a lifelong learner, it ain't going to be from just pontificating and thinking about things. You've got to accept how the world changes, and a good medium to explore that is through reading and accepting and looking for other viewpoints. I spend a lot of time fly fishing as a hobby. That's a picture of me in the lower right on the Yellowstone River a couple years ago. I do try to get out and spend time personally on the river, and I enjoy that time away. When I'm not doing that, I am spending a lot of time supporting my family in their pursuits of volleyball or soccer or what have you be. But family is very important to me. Now, I mentioned a little bit about my background, and I think if you see all the red dots there, those are all the places that I moved over 14 years. And if you look closely, you'll notice there's twice in the Waterloo Cedar Falls area, twice in the Des Moines metro area, and twice in the Kansas City area, as well as Wyoming, Wichita, Kansas, Dallas, Texas, and Augusta, Georgia. My time in the company, although I entered in a manufacturing organization, I always wanted to have a complete career. And back then, in the early days when I was first starting in the company in the late 80s, I always thought about, it's great to learn how we make a great product, but I think I need to get a little closer to customers and dealers to understand the complete package. And after a couple of years of thinking about that and talking to people about the company, I did get an opportunity to move to the field, and that led to 14 years of sales and marketing experiences. Then it led to more senior level roles, which were director of our precision ag group. And then I've recently been involved in leading a lot of different functions of our finance division, leading up to my current responsibilities today, which are essentially guiding all of our new product development efforts, how we create new value across all of our global operations. And I lead, as a member of the president's staff, I lead the senior leaders and what we do with our strategy to compete and earn the business by working with customers and dealers. Now, a couple of comments around this. If I would have been challenged to write down a career plan, this would not have been it. I've learned, I saw some things. Each role taught me a little bit more about the world, and I was able to see a little bit differently. And I was able to move towards opportunities. And at least in the company I'm involved in, that was important, to be able to relocate and move towards an opportunity. That probably accelerated my development. It accelerated my learning, and it accelerated probably my performance over the long term. That doesn't come for free, that doesn't come without sacrifices at the family level. My oldest daughter, who's in college right now, went to 8 different grade schools between kindergarten and 8th grade. You can look at that as a negative, like, wow, no friends going through that. Or you can look at it as a positive. She got to meet a ton of friends and got really good at making friends and really good at seeing different parts of the United States. My point is, if you see the positive and you see the upside of things, and you have an outlook that is abundance oriented, you're going to find the good things in life. And I had the support of my family, and my family supported me, and it was a journey that was well worth it. But if I would have been challenged to have a career plan, I would have never mapped this out. So maybe a good piece of advice is have a career plan, have some thoughts about what you might do next, talk to people about what you might do next, but don't be thinking about what the perfect career plan is many, many years out, because it's apt to change over time. Now, I'd like to make a few comments around some essentials of leadership that I think are important, especially as you get your feet on the ground starting in a new career. And there's 5 key areas. One is to start a conversation with yourself around purpose, talk a little bit about potential, and then I want to comment a little bit about key skills and how they relate to key experiences. And then I've got a comment around blind spots. So purpose. It's always healthy to talk about what you're good at, what do you enjoy doing, and what makes a difference in the world. You know, I might be great at fly fishing. You know, I might love doing it. I can get lost for days doing it. But does anybody really care about that? No. You got to kind of find that magic window that says you got a really good talent or an emerging talent that you're developing, and you can get into this zone, kind of a Zen-like state that you really just enjoy it, and that it makes a difference to people in this world. And the healthy conversation isn't to have this on a piece of paper and to file it away, or to chisel it in rock and put it as an artifact in your life. Healthy conversation is to have the conversation, because as your life changes, as you move through early to mid to senior level roles in your world, your priorities will change, and maybe your purpose will evolve, and maybe your purpose would go different directions depending on where your life takes you. The healthiest thing to do, though, is to live a purposeful life, and to do it with intention, and to take the time to understand the influence and impact you may have on the world. And sometimes you'll never know that impact. But if you step back, and if you continue to ask yourself what your purpose is, what you're really trying to accomplish from time to time, chances are you're going to have a lot more success in life. You're going to have a lot more fulfilling activities to do, and at the end of the day, you're gonna have a successful career and a satisfying life. Now, just pivoting a little bit closer to more about the job, transitioning to a job or to a company, or starting a company of your own, whatever your worldview is at the moment. It's worth noting a comment about potential, and from time to time we have to talk about, make evaluations of people about, what they're really capable of doing, what's their long-term potential, what's their ultimate leadership potential. And I wish somebody would have told me on day one when I exited college, hey, here's the standards, here's what you got to pay attention to. And what I've learned over time, and there's probably differences of opinion on this, but this is what's worked for me over time, and this is what's worked for many people that I've gotten to know over time. There's lots of attributes to a successful career, but one that has phenomenal potential typically has 4 key attributes, and they're listed on the right side here, left side here on my slide here. Be a lifelong learner. Our world will evolve. The world is going to change. The question is, are you going to change with it? And are you going to engage with it? Or are you applying things that you learned 20 years ago to today's world that really don't have any real application? How do you feed that? How do you engage in that? I mentioned earlier, I take on a major activity about once every 10 years. I take on substantial development monthly and yearly, and even daily. I take a mind test every morning to keep me sharp in multiple different levels. I'm just trying to keep pace and evolve in a way that keeps me engaged with the world. Secondly, emotional maturity. Can you handle conflict? And more specifically, do you gravitate towards conflict, or do you shun it, walk away from it, avoid it, not acknowledge it? Who are you? And can you rise above the conflict to lead others through sparky situations? Can you recognize that that's one of those situations, and can you step into it and make a difference? Third, rapid mastery of assignments. When thrown into a unfamiliar terrain, can you quickly assemble, triage, and go and create value? That's key if you want to jump from a factory to a marketing unit to a sales branch, back to a technology outfit, or back to or towards a finance outfit that you've never worked with before, like in my career. But the point is, there's transferable skills, and some of them are you have an affinity to figuring out what's most important, what's the task at hand, and then how can you create value in that space. And the last one is initiative. Are you the kind of person that waits to be told to do something, or waits to have a fully baked syllabus to take the first step in a career? Or do you reach out? Do you engage ahead of time? Are you proactive? Are you thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead? Are you one to step up to the room and start to engage? Are you one to raise your hand and say, hey, we can make a difference here? Lots of different ways to do that, but leaders tend to feel a little bit more comfortable in that space to try to move things along. So I encourage everybody, particularly early in their career, to gain some kind of relationship to those 4 attributes as you start to get your feet underneath you and start to really believe who you are and what you're capable of doing in this world. A few comments. I'll pivot forward here to experiences and a closely related aspect of key skills. Now, based on my experiences before, I believe, and well, I'll just tell you, I'll clear the slide here for you. On the left side is things that I've been involved in over 30 years. And there's a little bit of a description to give you a little bit of context of kind of what that meant. You know, when I was working with Clio, you know, we were working with developing dealers, making sure dealers were important, and you know, leading dealers in sales, customer support, and location strategy, those kinds of things, for example. Now, when you get into a career and you start thinking about, you know, what you're wanting to do in the world, it's really simple to start going towards, well, I want to do that job, or I want to be that job, or I want to get to that role. And I really caution everybody to take a step back and don't think about it so much as what job you want as what experience you want. Now, that's really important for 2 reasons. First off, it's a nod towards acknowledgement that the day you take a job will be the least qualified you ever are to do that job. The most qualified you're ever going to do that job is the day you leave it. because you're always evolving, you're always getting more experience, you're always growing, learning, doing lots of things. And really, earlier in your career, you should be very uh, uh, open to new experiences to understand the company, understand the market, understand the world that you're trying to get involved to. And if you start talking about things or start talking about your opportunities in terms of jobs, it really places the focus not where it needs to be. Focus early in a career needs to be, what experiences are you getting? What are you learning? Deeply learning, not just experiencing. What are you deeply learning about the company, the customer, or those around you, or fellow employees? And secondly, if you say you want to be that job, what if that job doesn't exist 2 years from now? There's been opportunities in our company where folks have said, I'd like to be such and such, and 3 years later, those jobs don't exist. They've moved over to a different form, and it's a different thing altogether. And I constantly remind people, don't talk about jobs, talk about experiences, okay? Now, all of these same things on the left side, I'm going to transition to highlighting key experiences. And these items in red here, working with union employees, working with John Deere dealers, talking about a location strategy, defining a new product program. That's a key experience in our company. Marketing at a regional level, broadly, US, Canada, Australia. Talking about global businesses. How do you run small tractors around the world? And then technology, experience and intimate understanding of how software relates to hardware, how hardware and software relates to overall systems engineering, and then financing. Those things in red gave me experiences and relationships around the world that are invaluable today for me to perform as a senior executive in our company or in our industry. And if I wouldn't have had openness to take on some of these roles outside of my area of expertise to learn and to grow those experiences, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And it does take a little risk. It does take a little chance to get different types of experiences. And you know what? Sometimes it may not work out, but I still think you're better for it by taking that chance and trying to learn broader and learn more about the company and yourself as you go through some of these experiences. Now, experiences, what do they lead to? Experiences lead to key skills. Now, these are the same things on the left as what were on the previous slide. But if you think about it, experiences lead the conversation. Skills is what you take away. So I'll just quickly highlight the issues here on the red. What you learn is quality. And in our company, quality is a big deal. Well, what's a good experience? Maybe sometimes you must make the decision between what is scrap and what is not scrap. And sometimes those have consequences. Sometimes it's $1 million decision. People skills, problem solving skills. You can go on down the line there. You learn all kinds of skills. And that's really what having a successful career is all about. Getting good experiences, learning skills, and being more efficient and effective in what you do. You become different. You become a different employee for other employees, and you become a better, productive employee for the company that you're involved in, whether that's your own entrepreneurial organization or a big company like John Deere that's got over 70,000 employees around the world. Getting good experiences that lead to skills is kind of the name of the game as far as the framing up that I give people who are early in their career. Now, just a comment here on blind spots. And I think this is important because blind spots can be something that you live with right now as you're graduating college or getting through this transition window. And you kind of just carry them into your life through momentum, or you just kind of get through to a job and now you've got a new environment, and it's hard to understand how to operate in that new environment, and you might not know it's not right what you did, or you might not know you offended somebody, or you might not know something happened. And in our company, we call them derailers or blind spots, or there's a number of terms, but the point is somebody is trying to do their best, but they just don't see the impact that they're having, and they're totally blind to it. And I think it's important for people early in their career to understand how this actually works towards building a better career. Um, you know, first off is to be open to finding ways to get the feedback, and to be open to the feedback, and to be available for that. Now, there's lots of ways to do that. You can ask your boss for feedback. You can ask your fellow employees. Some companies have, a specific form that is done where people rate you and you get anonymous feedback. You might have a spouse or a significant other that says, "Hey, y'all know you're really kind of acting weird there." Or in the case of like giving presentations, or in the case of, well, like sports is a good example. What metacognition is what I'm talking about. The ability to step outside yourself and view your behavior and your performance objectively. Why do you think it is that football teams review videotape? Why do you think it is that golfers videotape themselves? Why do you think it is important for professionals to videotape themselves giving a presentation? Because it's really hard for people to see their own performance. And when you put it on video, it's right there in live and living color. And there's no way to run from it. Now, my main point here is get into a habit of seeking feedback. Because here's the key, here's the value. Having a blind spot isn't a bad thing, okay? It's kind of normal. It means you're human. Now, not knowing what they are, and certainly not doing something about them, now that can cause some severe problems, and in some cases it can cause some problems that are irreversible for you. You could lead to problems that you don't even know about, and that are irreparable. So you've really got to know that these exist and be open to them. And early in your career, it might be a breeze, but think about it as your responsibilities increase, as you shoulder the challenges of life that might be ahead of you, whether that be getting married or raising a family or being more involved in your community or what have you. Lots of things can amp up the stress in somebody's life, and stress has a funny way of impacting people. And what may have been the easiest thing in the world to do when you were 25 might be a little different for you when you're 35 or 40, and you've got a board meeting in the community, you got three or four kids at home, you got a wife that works, or you've got a health condition in an elderly parent, or you've got a loved one that is struggling, and or any number of things to shoulder as life moves on. And so always being open to blind spots, always being open to feedback, and always being objective is the key here. And it's a very, very good habit early in a career to get into that mode. Now, I'm going to transition here to a little bit of personal advice, and also end with a bit of a statement about attitude. About 15 years ago, I really started trying to improve the personal life with the professional life. And, my objective is to get A's at home and A's at work, and as you could imagine, all my three girls were younger. We were moving around. It was really hard to keep everything in perspective. And I just started keeping track of this annually. Said, all right, what am I going to do to keep Tony in line in the personal side, and I'm going to make a binder with 6 goals on it. And then I'm going to see where that goes. And then I'm going to keep another 6 tabs in that binder about my professional life. And I'm going to keep everything in perspective. And I've got binders at home that go back years. And what it's turned into is it's evolved over time, those binders and these tabs. Every year I update them, but I also keep track of stuff. So if I run a 5K with my daughter, I keep the actual number that I pin, and I make my daughter sign it, and it goes in the book. You know, because that was a time that I spent working with my family and contributing to my kids. If there was some other artifact that came along with life, you know, certification or something, I try to put it in that year, and I try to build a little bit of a scrapbook. So I've got a lot of artifacts, and ultimately what I do each year is I go through here and I say, gee, I got more done than what I thought, or gee, maybe I could do something better along this lines because I really didn't give this much attention to this or that. And then I take a look at the whole year, and I pick out a few people that really impacted my life. They may not have known what they did, but they really influenced me. And I send them a personal note at the end of that year. And I've turned into a kind of a goal-driven individual, or a objective and a key result type individual from a personal and professional life. My advice today is it's awesome to have a head of steam and take on the corporate world and to rock and roll. And people need aspirational people to do that in life. We need people to commit to great careers. But if you do it at the expense of everything else in your life, and if you do it in a way that you look back after 15 years and say, great, I got to here in the world, but I look back and no one's around me, you know, and I've lost all my relationships that I thought were important. You know, my advice to you right now is to seek a perspective that blends what you want to achieve in the world personally with what you want to achieve in the world professionally. And I think you'll be better off in the long run if you take a perspective like that. A couple of things, just personal motivation. I'm a believer in the book Drive, or the kind of the key lesson in the book Drive by Daniel Pink. You know, what really motivates people isn't a big paycheck. At some point it does. There's no question about money does, but at some point, more money doesn't give you more motivation. And it's a hard lesson to understand as you might be shouldering the transition from college to work. But what does work long term is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. AMP. Autonomy. Do you have say in your life? Do you have agency to change your own stars? Secondly, mastery. Are you really mastering something? Are you really mastering the skills that you're out there to get? And then third is what I started the conversation with around, contributing to something bigger than yourself and higher purpose in life. And in Deere, our previous chairman, our just immediately previous chairman that left the job here in April this year, he's always said, complete the John Deere strategy, become your very best, and give back to your community. I really love that motivation. And, you know, coming from a chairman that's got he had a 44-year career when he retired, carried a lot of weight with me. So I pass it along today for your consideration and review. A couple more slides and then I'll wrap it up. But the couple of other good resources, I think, to keep in mind. Good to Great, and the message inside that book about fierce resolve but deep humility. And I will tell you that my experience is I've seen a lot of people who are they got a head of steam and they're going to accomplish the mission. Where I've seen people drop the ball the most is having that humility. And the ball could be dropped two ways. You might have too much humility to the point where you don't think you can slay the dragon and get the job done, or you just forget about humility and say, what the hell, we just got to get her done. And I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry it went down like that, but you know what? We had to do it, and you gotta understand that that's a formula that needs to be looked at often. Do you have the drive, but do you have the deep humility to take the advice and the hard medicine when you need it most? Leadership Challenge is not a bad approach to leadership development as well. It's a book two fellas came up with and did a little research on, substantial research on, not a little research on, substantial research on. But they came up with 5 key attributes. Always be challenged in the process, continuous improvement, always find a better way. Understand it's human beings in that process, so encourage the heart. And then you model the way. It's not about other people doing things. Inspire a shared vision. It's us, not you, not me. It's us. And then be an enabler. Help people. Reach out. You see somebody struggling, do what you can to help. And then I just like that book, Execution by Larry Bossidy. That's more around how to run a good operations and how to think about leading in complex organizations. Know the people, know the business. And then some other advice around setting goals, reward the doers, how much time to spend on people development, things like that. And ultimately, know yourself first. These are just good references for further follow-up if you deem an interest. Now, some other things personally that I do, if you don't take care, like the goose that laid the golden egg, if you don't take care of yourself, like your energy, your ability to influence the world is impaired. So, kind of got 6 things that kind of run my life from a high level. Do I eat right and feel good? Do I exercise daily and have a modicum of energy? From an outlook perspective, am I constantly getting better and better? From a work perspective and effort, do I do the homework necessary to be successful? Am I positive and constructive in all I do? And one of the most important things I've ever seen and heard, and this goes way back, I am 100% responsible for my life. And the day that you start giving away some of that responsibility to this circumstance or that circumstance or something else over there, or what the boss did to you or did not do to you or did to somebody else but not to you, the day that you start carving your life up like that is the day you start living just a little bit less than what you were put on this earth to do. You are 100% responsible for your life. That brought you to this conversation today, that brought you through to all the years you put in, that brought you to where you're standing right now, right here today. It's all you. And it's, you know what? It's all you tomorrow. And I don't know where you came from and what your circumstances are, and they might be really good, they might be really bad, but you can't write a new beginning, but you certainly can write a different ending. And that responsibility lies with you. So I take that very seriously, because it's an outlook in life that has it's like a cornerstone or a keystone outlook in life that if you don't get that one thing, it impacts so much more in your life. Moving on, second thing, personal board of directors. I got advisors in my life. I got a lot of advisors, and I've had a lot of advisors. These are people I trust. These are people I have deep respect for in the long game. I'll tell them what some of my goals are, and I've got personal mentors that talk to me about how to be a good father, how to be a good husband. I got professional mentors, people that do it for a living, professional executive coaches, people that don't do it for a living, people that have lived the executive life and in complex organizations and just want to give back. I'm humble enough to know that I could use a little bit of advice from time to time, And certainly my life would be different if I would not have had a key piece of advice at one point or another in that 32-year journey I talked about earlier today. Lastly, I just talked a little bit about goals. Goals do drive behavior. I got a goal to meet 100 new people each year, and I'll give you an example. I really didn't like going to grade school parents meetings where you meet all the other parents at somebody's house. I was tired. I was working all day, and I'm like, we really have to do this. And then I just said, man, I got to get my attitude in check. It's an opportunity for me to meet people that I don't ever meet, and it just like on a dime, my attitude changed, and it led to meeting people that I got to know, and it actually improved my life. What was the difference on that? Probably convenient just to rest and take it easy that night. But I also would have looked down on a great opportunity to enhance my life and also your impact to them. It's a big deal. So that goal had an impact on me. And I'm a big believer in supporting charity organizations and in private, not for the sake of having your name attached to a certain effort or anything. But if you've been blessed with immense resources and immense opportunities in this world, I believe you have a responsibility to give to those less fortunate, or to give to those who need help and need a hand. I think that's a big deal personally. And then I got a kind of an odd goal, but I try to surprise my wife and or family randomly 12 times a year. Just, flowers aren't always for Valentine's Day. It's the small moments in time that matter. And the older I get, the more valuable those are. And this is just a check on me that I don't fly through the year and forget about what's most important to me. And it is that family. And I want to acknowledge them, and I want to support them, not only in the milestone moments of their life, but in the quiet moments when it's just you and them. Now, a really, really important relationship here is this formula, E plus R equals O. And if you've never heard that before, it stands for event plus reaction equals outcome. And that reaction is really important. Philosophically speaking, the event has no meaning in this world. Anything that could happen to you has zero meaning until and only when you attach your reaction to it. Then and only then can you predict that outcome. So a lot of people will arc from the event to the outcome and not think about how might I react to this. And I encourage everybody to think about how they react to things before they just jump to an assumed outcome. It's a good little formula to keep in mind as you grow. Now, in closing, it's kind of a good video that I saw one time, and I'll open it up for questions from Stacy or Kari. The best exotic marigold hotel. This actor Sonny kept on saying everything works out well in the end. If it's not working out well, it's just not the end. And it's a nod towards the journey of life and your contribution to life. You do have a role, and it's not just about you carrying around a rake on figuring out what you can rake into you. You have an impact on the world around you that is unbelievable. And you engaging in the world will change people's lives in ways that you cannot imagine. And in that process, you become different, and you become better, bigger than yourself, and better and bigger than what you could ever have imagined. And I think that's my final kind of comment is I really wish everybody well. I hope that you had a great experience to get you to the point you are today. And I hope that you may have found something in the material I presented today that you took note of, or that you thought about that, wow, that might be something that I might want to think about and do in my life, or to make my job a better place or my life a better life going forward. So with that, I'll close and give the floor to Stacy or Kari, and we'll see where we go from there. Thanks for your time today.
Excellent, Tony. Thank you so much. So we do want to open the chat up for questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll make sure that those get answered. As we wait, I do have the survey link I'm going to put in there too. If you attended the seminar, we would love for you to go ahead and fill out that survey. So if you click on the chat feature, Tony, kind of while we wait for some of those questions to come in, can you talk a little bit about how you find your development opportunities? You talked about really making sure that you're continuing to learn and taking advantage of those opportunities. How do you kind of find what opportunities are best for you? And are those traditionally like webinars or their classes or their books, or can you just talk about that a little bit?
It's over time, I've been fairly open to books. The most consistent sources of development for me have been first, tactile experience in life, whether that be taking on something, a major initiative in the community, listening to feedback from my boss or my peers or my employees, or looking at the world around me and saying, boy, that's interesting. Maybe I need to study up on that or learn that. So I think, or the other one would be truly a coach and a mentor. Truly a coach and a mentor. Sometimes they'll push you and prod you and make you think in ways that you maybe didn't have the best capability of doing before. So, the key link between all of those things is always be developing, always be a lifelong learner, and then that you'll find the right resources. But if you're bent on continuous improvement, and if you're bent on being a lifelong learner, that leads you to engagement. That engagement will lead you to a mentor, to a book, to a seminar, to a conference, or to talk to somebody, to an expert in their field. It'll lead you to the right resources. The key is, are you really a lifelong learner?
Awesome. Very good. Another question in the chat. What would you recommend any employee does to be successful in a new job transition? For example, maybe finding a mentor. Also, what would you recommend that they avoid doing?
Yeah. One of the things that I'd recommend that you do is contribute value and figure out what that means and do a good job in your current role. I've seen, and that's also, there's a corollary to what not to do. I've seen some really good careers get ended or substantially impaired by somebody who went into a role, and the first thing they did when they went into a role, they started to think about the next role, or they started to behave in a way that it really was clear that they weren't there to learn and to become a member of a team. They were there to get a year or two in and then move on down the road. Everybody can appreciate somebody who's got aspirations in life to become a chairman of a company or a senior executive. But when you're starting out a career, the best thing you can do is to engage in a team and make a difference. And think about those 4 key areas of potential, and particularly that 4th one around initiative. Show that you have initiative to take care of things and seek things that are in conflict, like that emotional maturity. Show where you can make a difference to employees around you and make their world better or make the company better. And the more that you can get experience and just engage as a new employee, the better off you're going to be. So I encourage people to look at those 4 things and talk to other people in other functions of the company. Learn about how the company creates value. You are a learner. You're not necessarily a doer at that stage. You're really learning how to do things. And just understand that that's where you're at. But as quick as you can, get up there and contribute value in those roles. What not to do is not to worry about your career at that point. Do not worry about the next job. In some respects, and this is really hard, don't worry about a promotion. And again, I've seen great careers get lost, mostly in the mid-career area, but people are worried about getting a promotion or getting a year into a job and then boom, they expect to be promoted or they're going to leave. The issue is you're out there to get experiences and skills, and sometimes you've got to understand that experience is going to come at the expense of a big promotion or a public promotion. For example, when I was in the factory in Waterloo as a shop floor supervisor, in my world, I wanted an opportunity to get closer to the customers and the dealers. But to do that, I had to take a labor grade drop. I wasn't really concerned about that because in my mind, it was a promotion to get the experience. I wasn't really concerned about, am I getting a fair compensation? It was all fair. It was all in the same range, but it was a labor grade drop that could have not turned out well for me. In the long run, it turned out very well because I got better experiences that other people maybe would not have gotten. So always think about experiences and don't necessarily worry about jobs, promotions, and how public think. Get really focused on your development and how you can learn and how you can contribute value when you get into those initial roles in a company. Good question.
Great. Next question. Can a new employee have too many mentors? Also, how does a new employee seek a mentor to help them navigate successfully in their new position, role, or job?
Yeah, I think there's a couple dangers there. If you have too many mentors or you reach out for too many mentors early on, you start to get a potential rap for politicking because you're kind of out there talking to people who are more experienced in the company. And if you're talking to too many, it's almost like, wait a minute, what's the motive here? What are you really need that many mentors at that stage in your career, or do you need one excellent one? And you don't want to get, just like you don't want to be out there asking for the next job. You want people to see the great work you do, and then have 4 people pull for your demand for your talent. So be careful on how much explicit focus you put on your career by reaching out to gain too many mentors, particularly in a big company or in a company. I think it would be wise to curtail that a little bit and make sure you have quality, not quantity. And then the second part of that was what again, Stacy?
It was, how does a new employee seek a mentor to help them navigate successfully in their new position, role, or job?
Yeah, there you go. So what I would advise in situations like that is get a grasp of the landscape of how the company looks at performance. How do they rate performance? Do they do it once a year? Do they do it twice a year? How do they have a formal development plan that they need on file? And try to understand the mechanism for development in a company. And as part of that, now, it could be at the end of every year you get a performance review, okay? Well, that's a special window of time where you can raise some things up and say, I really loved working here. I really, struggled here. I got good stuff done here, but if it was available, what might be good to help my performance would be to get a mentor. What do you think? And then have a conversation. Another one is if the company has a development plan process in place, usually it's got some foundation to it if they've done that. And then that's the window of time to open up the conversation and say, hey, I've been thinking about this. What do you think? Is there an option to do this? Is an opportunity to do this? And then how do you find that right person? Kind of maps to where you're at in your life and what kind of experiences that you're seeking to get. And it goes back to that experience relationship with skills. You're trying to seek people that maybe have navigated those waters before, not to coach you through how to do everything in your world, but to have just pass along some tactile knowledge, things that are unwritten that may help you in your journey as you're navigating through your career and through your life. So I would use formal tools that exist out there, and then if they don't exist, then what you want to do is look at people who you really respect and you want to become more like, and then just kind of find a way to tactfully see if they would be open to helping you out without being too overt about demanding things, or being too common, around, hey, we should meet monthly or whatever. I think it's a little bit of a dance from that perspective if you don't get a formal boost to finding a good mentor.
Perfect. Another question. What are 2 or 3 successful best practices demonstrated you have seen at John Deere by successful new employees straight from college?
I think I've seen really good people get on the right track by asking good questions about the scope of the job. And the reason I say that is because there's the scope of the job that you can take on and go, but then the employee wants to know where else they can add value. And you see, then right away, you see whether they're contributing value beyond what they're given immediately. And that's an early signal to, if they see things where they can add value, do they take the initiative outside, above and beyond their scope of responsibility? Because what that means is, yeah, they can handle their responsibilities, but they can also contribute a lot more, which usually leads to giving people more responsibilities. Secondly is humility and the ability to how do they treat people? Is a really big deal. Do they take all the credit, or do they share the credit, or do they take the time in the quiet moments to recognize an employee for doing a great job? Do they make sure that employee's boss knows about that great work that somebody did? The humility to reach out and to see value for what it is outstanding to see in the early part of a career. It really sets the people apart in this day and age, actually.
Excellent, excellent. I think we have time for one more question. So in the moment, Tony, how do you know if the opportunity you've been offered is something that you should take? And just from a personal perspective, have you ever turned down an opportunity?
Yeah, I have. I've turned down a couple, and each time I thought I killed my career, and it ended up not being the case. But you do say no every once in a while. But when those moments come, you're going to have an innate sense of right and wrong and whether it's for you. Then you can check that with people who are more experienced with you. And then third, you got 3 levels. One is yourself. You're going to know what you think you know immediately. Secondly, you can reach out to people you trust. And if you've built that strong, quote unquote, board of directors for your life, maybe some people in that circle can advise you. And then third, who's the closest people around you that would be impacted by that? I mean, it was a very long conversation with my wife when we decided to move from Kansas City to Wichita to Wyoming, and all the way to Dallas and all the way to Augusta. I mean, every time those decisions came up, my wife was side by side with me on those decisions. But I had already processed my position internally. I'd already got some bearing from others who had been through those types of roles. And the other person with veto power in my life was my wife. And we talked it through. And if she would have said no, it wouldn't have happened.
Excellent. Well, we are at the end of our time. I really do want to take some time, Tony, to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Cleo, do you have anything that you want to add before we conclude?
I just want to thank Tony for his I think it's been very essential for those that today. He brought clarity in the not personal experience, but providing anyone that's listening an opportunity to not understand how to transition in position, but also to exist, not just with position, but in your career and from a personal perspective. I also like the fact that things that he talked about, things like, for example, having your own personal direct, things are helpful in your continuous learning and curiosity, but also making sure that you're humble as well, because either you're going to be humble or you're going to be humble. Better to be humbled than to be humble. Tony, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, for sharing your insights, your experiences, and I'm sure everybody that involved here appreciated what you had to bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Cleo. It's been a privilege, and I'm very happy to be with you today. Have a great day, everybody.